Good evening. This is The Week Ahead, a show that will showcase some of the items that will transpire in the week ahead that will help you decide what needs to be in focus and help you get on with the day. We're broadcasting live from the All Asia Broadcasting Centre here in Bukit Jalil. My name is Ibrahim Sani and we will be working with you throughout the next half an hour to find out what is the key feature that will take place in the week ahead. Of course, this week will be Budget 2022, which will be tabled this Friday by the Prime Minister. This is a much anticipated budget that many has already spoken about, that it will be focused on COVID-19 recovery, but it is also going to be a point of discussion where new taxes might be introduced in 2023. Some hints will be given by the Prime Minister into what the new type of taxes that is going to be introduced. Is it going to be a rethink on how RPGT is going to be done? Is it a rethink of how GST is going to be included in the next year's budget, or something similar? So those are the kind of key items that you got to think about when we think about Budget 2022. Also, the G20 Leaders Summit will also be held this week on October 30th in Rome. This is, of course, talking about the issues of climate change, COVID-19, and the resumption of global trade back to pre-pandemic status. And, of course, largely, the topic will also revolve around how many countries, Malaysia included, is moving from a pandemic situation to an endemic situation. Our closest neighbour and our biggest trade partner, Singapore, has already spoken at length about how they are embracing endemicity, that they are trying to think about only those that are in the highest risk order, particularly those in the senior category. But otherwise, the rank and file individuals out there in Singapore, with a country that has almost 90% total population vaccinated, they are moving towards endemicity. So now in the G20 summit, it's going to be more of that as well. Also in the focus would be in the run-up of the Melaka elections that will be done on May 20th. Some of the topics of the day will include on how the opposition is going to come back in response to a statement given by the health minister saying that public gatherings are not allowed for the Melaka elections for fear of COVID-19 reinfection. And of course, that is going to be discussed later on in this show. Moving on to our first story. In a statement, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob has announced that Johor and Terengganu will shift from phase 4, will shift to phase 3 from phase 4 of the National Recovery Plan starting tomorrow on October 25th. These states will join Selangor, KL, Putrajaya, Pahang, Negeri Sembilan, Melaka and Labuan.
Meanwhile, Penang, Perlis, Perak, Kelantan, Kedah, Sabah and Sarawak are still under Phase 3. There are no states under Phase 1 or 2 of the NRP. Fully vaccinated teenagers will get to enjoy perks similar to the adult population, with the government giving a grace period of 3 weeks to coordinate related facilities before this comes into force. The period is given to ensure that about 80% of adolescents who have received their first dose would have completed their vaccination. The vaccination program for adolescents started on September 20th. As of yesterday, 80.2% of the adolescents' population has received at least one dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine in less than 2 months. The government has also agreed with the proposed standard operating procedures for foreign workers entering the country, especially to meet the needs of the plantation sector. The SOPs will be enforced on all approved sectors, while foreign workers will be allowed entry on a case-by-case basis by the Foreign Workers Committee, jointly chaired by the Human Resources and Home Ministers. Among the SOPs for entry of foreign workers are that they are fully vaccinated, perform a RT-PCR COVID-19 screening test 72 hours prior to leaving the country of origin, and undergo a 7-day mandatory quarantine period at a government-certified quarantine centre around the Klang Valley.
Our next story will revolve around items included or possibly included in the budget. This is because Malaysia's property sector, like many industries, has been badly affected by the pandemic. And because of that, the AWANI Tonight team last week spoke to Property Guru country manager Sheldon Fernandez on what's slowing the recovery of the sector and perhaps some of their wish list for the budget of this year to get the property market back on its feet.
We see two particular factors. One is the increasing difficulty in obtaining bank loans, given all the current challenges. And that's obviously affected the confidence, and that confidence is obviously lower in the market, given that there's also an economic stability as well. So this resulted really in terms of the total number of residential property transactions in the first quarter of 2021 dropped by 44.7% compared to the same period last year. Now, we also see a declining trend in terms of property asking prices since the second quarter of 2020. So, it's further down back with a year-on-year drop of 2.16%. And this is according to our Property Guru Asking Price Index, where we measure all asking price given the more than 500,000 listings we have on the site.
Sheldon outlined several measures that may stimulate recovery quicker for the sector.
And now some of the things that can be done really is extending the home ownership campaign, which is a very successful government campaign right up to 2022, but also includes sub-sale properties. Second is obviously extending the exemption of RPGT onto residential homes to 2022, or even revising it downwards, because this obviously can stimulate the property market by encouraging buying and selling of residential homes, given it's a very attractive incentive. Third thing I think we could do is provide some income tax relief on interest accrued by home loans, after the moratorium ends. And that has been a hot topic, the moratorium, and that's really helped a lot of people. But this would certainly help ease the household burden of those in need. And last but not least, I think one of the things that we could do is obviously introducing rental incentives to benefit tenants and landlords, because, with financial incentives through landlords and tenants that can be claimed by either party or even the landlord for the matter, who provide rent reduction to tenants impacted by the COVID-19.
When we talk about the budget 2022, we must also talk about the 12th Malaysia Plan because it works in tandem with one another. And this is because the 12th Malaysia Plan has identified sustainability as a priority in the country's long-term development plan. Because of this, we take a closer look in sustainability for the real estate segment and if property players are going to see value in going green.
Really to spur this component of sustainability is additional tax reduction, maybe to encourage developers to adopt green certification tools, right? This is so that the developers can benefit from the tax deductions equivalent to the additional capital expenditure needed to obtain a green certification, because we know there's additional cost when it comes to building long-term green sustainable developments. So you want to incentivize that. And this goes very well in line with what the property seekers are looking for, which is much more usable, practical, and sustainable space, given the nature of the experience of home living that they have gone through, work from home, new trends, etc. The other thing, obviously, is stamp duty exemption for buyers of green certificate properties. So it's not just the supply side, but also the demand side, because, as I said, the cost of constructing is typically higher than traditional buildings, but even the differences are covered in the long run. This might deter home buyers from making the purchase, right?
Over the next week, we're going to be listening to a lot more conversations on Undi 18. This is because we anticipate the implementation of Undi 18 to be done by year end. So education on matters pertaining to the Constitution is crucial, particularly amongst the youth. Youth empowerment advocate Marcella Ling says political education not only helps solve the problem of apathy and empathy among youth, it's also enabling them to prepare for emerging voters to make informed decisions in charting the future of the country.
Because we all have the direct access to a lot of different informations. So sometimes some people, they only allow themselves to be open to certain perspective. So which lead to them standing in only one perspective of what politics and also what education and democracy is about. So we know that this kind of things is happening, like they view politics such as dirty, corrupted, kleptocracy, gerontocratic, and also they see that politics is also about the old people arguing in parliament about who's good and who's better, like who's not good and who's not suitable to be all this kind of stuff. So they tend to only focus on this side, which doesn't make them to open their eyes to the good side of what politics is all about. What is what politics is actually about. Yeah. And it somehow led to the helplessness of the young people, and as well as people who don't believe in the democracy and political reformations. So, which led to the hopelessness of political reformations for a better Malaysia.
16-year-old Marcella also urged for more freedom for political expression among the youths.
18 years old is actually already an age when you need to enter university and stuff. So when there's some general election coming on, of course you need to talk about it with your friends and also with the people in your university. So I still believe in the abolishments of AUKU 1971, which is the University and University Colleges Act 1971, right? Because in the name of peaceful administrations, AUKU is very important, right? But I think this is just an excuses, because which political party do people support and why do they support this kind of political party is no longer should be a taboo topic, because only 18, which means 18 years old will start to vote, right? But instead, all of this discussion is actually a good opportunity for young people to be able to grow and also learn and also find a common ground to strive for a better Malaysia. So if AUKU is continue to be implementing among the youth in university, I think it will be one of the biggest hurdle for young people to freely and be wise in making decisions and also in voicing out their opinions.
The government has agreed that the lowering of the voting age from 21 to 18, along with automatic voters registration, will be implemented by December 31st.
We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more on the week ahead. Welcome back. This is The Week Ahead, broadcasting live from the All Asia Broadcasting Centre in Bukit Jalil. Further to the discussion of what's going to happen next week is going to be on the issue of vaccination and vaccinated visitors visiting Malaysia. This is because fully vaccinated foreign visitors may visit Langkawi without the need to go for the COVID-19 quarantine starting from November 15th. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said that the COVID-19 Pandemic Management Special Committee has agreed with the SOP presented by the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. This is to implement the international tourism bubble for inbound tourists there.
Among the SOPs are fully vaccinated visitors must have at least $80,000 insurance coverage and hail from a list of countries approved by the Immigration Department, Health Ministry and the Foreign Ministry. Children under the age of 18 must be present with their parents or guardians who have been fully vaccinated. Visitors must also stay for a minimum of 3 days, and that the non-quarantine flexibility only applies for the Langkawi trip. They must also undergo the RT-PCR COVID-19 test 3 days before departure, the results of which must be presented either in digital or printed form. Another RT-PCR test is also required 3 days before returning to their countries. Travel services by tour operator licensed under MOTAC would be made mandatory, and visitors must upload the MySejahtera application and register before departure. The pilot project will be conducted for 3 months for the Health Ministry and the National Security Council to assess its effectiveness before being implemented on resort islands as well as other tourist areas.
Also in discussion is the announcement, perhaps the decision following Malaysia being still in discussion with Saudi Arabia on relaxing its vaccine requirement for individuals wanting to perform the Umrah and Hajj pilgrimages. Pilgrims are only allowed entry into Saudi if they are vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccines as approved by the Saudi government. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin has stressed that all vaccines used in Malaysia are safe and effective.
The Saudi Arabian government accepts 4 types of vaccines, namely Pfizer-BioNTech, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson and Moderna for individuals wanting to enter the kingdom. In July, Saudi Arabia announced that individuals fully vaccinated with the Sinovac or Sinopharm vaccine will be accepted into the country provided that they had received the booster dose from vaccines recognized by it. Meanwhile, Khairi said the MySejahtera application would have a new feature to enable individuals needing the booster dose to apply for it from next month, in meeting the conditions set by other countries, including for performing Umrah and Hajj.
We'll go for one more short break before we conclude our conversation on the week ahead. Welcome back. This is the week ahead. We're looking into the final week of October, bearing in mind that we only have 2 more full set of months left in the year. How fast does the time fly? Because of this, the COP26 arrangement or conversation is going to take place extremely well in the next few days. We're also going to be looking at the G20 that is going to be talking about climate change. And because of this, there's a lot of topic on how climate is going to be driving the conversation forward. And in Malaysia, because of Budget 2022, not many is being discussed, or not much conversation is being discussed in terms of how we can create a lot more awareness and a lot more incentive and initiative from the side of the government, working collectively with the private sector on eking out how to reduce greenhouse gas, how to improve on the carbon tax element of the country, and how to make Malaysia a little bit better in terms of managing our climate. And this conversation is even greater amplified because right now Malaysia is ranked 21st out of 32 countries in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, this data is coming in from KPMG's Net Zero Readiness Index. And the head of governance and sustainability, Kasturi Nathan, says that while the country has set strong green policy initiatives, Malaysia, like many other countries, lack a binding law to make a net zero carbon target a reality.
Out of the 32 countries, I must say, only 9 of them have a binding net zero commitment under their national laws that places a legal obligation on their governments to deliver. So we clearly on that front need to expedite and adapt net zero targets and signing them into law, right? So legally binding targets and delivery capabilities are key measures in delivering net zero ambition.
She said key to achieving net zero carbon lies in the collaboration between public, private, and financial sectors supported by behavioral changes.
Public support for climate action is key. Net zero measures, right, should be clearly communicated to the public sector, such as highlighting on the lower pollution levels of electric vehicles or the health benefits of eating less meat, which contributes to the reduction of methane emission from livestock. So these are simple, easy to relate to and easy to understand messages that should be clearly communicated from time to time.
Additionally, she said introducing a carbon tax policy is a way to drive behavioral changes and influence public support.
A healthier dietary requirements, right, is introduced at the expense of taxes on food which is high in methane emission. For example, livestock or high in meat consumption. So meat, clearly excessive meat consumption releases methane into the environment, so such products are taxed, right? Are carbon taxed. So this is how the behavior of individuals can be altered, can be influenced to drive the right behavior.
So very recently, I had a conversation with the CEO of Nano Malaysia, Dr. Rizal. In it, our conversation on Notepad, basically on my own show, on the other platform, was talking about how the government is rolling aside that very important roadmap on trying to bring our carbon energy sources a bit lower than normal, but it still is talking about non-renewable sources. So the government is rolling out the National Hydrogen Technology and Economy Roadmap, which basically tries to bring down coal and bring down all the other dirty gases or dirty sources of energy and try to bring up hydrogen. But we don't know how this will pan out when it comes to the correlation between all the other parties involved. So it's a very good conversation to be had. I urge you to look for Nano Malaysia on astroawani.com on my show Notepad. You can also go through all the other assets that we have on astroawani.com, particularly this long-form conversation with Kasturi Nathan of KPMG. And of course, when we talk about the ideas of what things are doing right now, where things stand, it's also important for us to take a look at KPMG's Net Zero Readiness Index, which is also available on KPMG's own website. So that's it for the week ahead, but think about what the options are for Budget 2022. This is a big week, not just for Malaysia, but also for the individual of one of us, every single one of us. This is a budget that is meant for us to recover from COVID. Many of us are double vaccinated. That's good. My own daughter has been double vaccinated as well, so that's great. But there is a lot of issues when it comes to lives and livelihoods. So that is a big thing that we need to think about moving forward for this week. Until then, thanks very much for watching and catch you in the next one.